So I just want you guys to be aware she's not playing hooky. It's just her schedule's impossible to work out. She also is at 8 o'clock. She's not trying to she's not sleeping in. She's just learning how to put needles in arms and things like that, stuff that I couldn't do. Not at any time of day. I'm scared of needles, and I'm scared of putting them in other people more than putting them in me. So, I was just having a nice chat with Sophie, who looks very relaxed and happy. So, guys, we're going to start today just by each of you catch us up. Did you have any fun on spring break? Did you work too hard? Did you play too hard? Everybody's got to tell us something. And if you don't want to tell us anything personal, then lie to us. It's okay. We'll never know. But everyone gets. So, who'd like to start? Let's just catch up. Spring break time. Sophie, you were here first. You want to start off and let people know how you're doing?
Sure. So for spring break, I did a lot of shopping. I have an internship in Ohio this summer, in a business office, so I'll be working in HR, in Kettering, for Kettering Health Network. So I did a ton of shopping for clothes for that. And so that was really fun. And then I just got to hang out with my brother. We were supposed to go to a wedding, but the wedding got canceled. So it's kind of interesting. But I got to see 2 out of 3 of my siblings, so that was really nice. And then my brother's getting married, and so he's trying to find, like, someone to cater his wedding. So we got to go around town trying, like, street tacos. So that was really fun. And then, let's see, what else happened during spring break? It was like such a short week, but such a long week at the same time. Yeah, and then I had some family stuff happen. We lost a family member, so it was really
so sorry.
home just to be there for my family and my grandma and my dad. So that was good.
Well, I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm very excited for you that you've got the Kettering thing. That sounds like a plum position, huh?
I know. Yeah, so I'll have to go in like May for like 3 or 4 days for orientation and stuff. And then I think they're gonna fly me back out to California, and then they're gonna fly me back to Ohio in June.
Wonderful.
So yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. And I'm
Thank,
glad that you got to see your family. I'm very sorry for the loss, but I'm very excited for you for the summer. That's wonderful.
thank you. Yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Who wants to go second? Tell us what's happening over spring break. That was lovely. Okay, Leslie, you have to because you were second here.
Okay. I didn't really do much over spring break. I got to see my sister, but the circumstance wasn't like super nice just because we had lost a family member earlier winter quarter. So it was for the funeral service. So it was really hard to be like excited to see everyone just because of like the circumstance that brought us together. But regardless, it was still nice to see family and be with them. And that, yeah, spring break wasn't as restful as I'd hoped it would be, but it was still nice to see family. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Well, I'm so sorry, Leslie. That I mean, I just you and Sophie both losing important people in your family, having to be at a memorial during spring break. I feel so badly for you. Are you feeling okay now? Is it good?
Yeah, um, yeah, it was just hard, like having to leave my sister and her husband just because they're the ones that are kind of grieving the loss more.
Mm,
So, yeah.
yeah. Well, guys, we're going to have both of you in our prayers and lots of love in our hearts for both of you. And I hope that this quarter is a time for you to you'll get away from all of that and get into the joys of stuff. But if you need anything, please, you'll call on us. That's what we're here for. Um, man alive. So, anything else, Leslie, or is that sounds like a pretty full story?
Yeah, that was kind of it. That was mostly my spring break.
Wow, wow. Daviel, tell us you had a good spring break.
Yeah, I had a pretty good spring break. My family and I went to Mexico for my sister's business trip.
Okay, so first of all, explain how you went there for your sister's business trip and where you went in Mexico and what you did.
Okay. My sister started a business called Destination Praise, and she allows like Christians to explore parts of the like just parts of the world that we usually wouldn't go by ourselves, but we go um like with a group. So that's what we went on. That was our first trip, and we went to Cancun, Mexico, and we went parasailing. We ate a lot of good food. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Cancun is beautiful. I have to tell you, I went parasailing, and just before I took off, this French tourist came up to me and asked me if I had signed my will yet.
What?
But parasailing is so much fun. Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. So you had a real
Yes, I did.
vacation. You were down in Cancun having a good time. Wow. That's wonderful. Yay. And a spring break with Christians. That's actually sounds really much better than what was happening in Florida. So fantastic. Well, welcome back, everybody. And welcome back. And I'm hoping that we're going to have a great quarter together. Um, Lots to learn, but we're going to try to have fun doing it. Why not? By the way, one member of this group is not registered for the lab, and I don't know who it is because I forgot to check. But do make sure that you're registered for the lab as well as for the course because they're supposed to be taken together. They're co-requisites, and we do take them together, but you want to get credit for it. So just check your registration on that one, everybody. And and otherwise, there's nothing new this quarter. The only thing I ask of you is that if you really have questions on a chapter, do the homework before you call me. If you've tried the homework, you have infinite amount of my time. But if you haven't even tried it yet, I'll ask you to try it and spend an hour first before you call me. But otherwise, it's the same. 3 exams, some take-home exams, some homework, some quizzes, and I hope I'm always open for lots of discussion and things like that. Okay? All right. So I'm going to ask some questions in review because we're back to Can you believe this? I mean, Davio just got back from Cancun, and now we're talking dominant seventh chords. I don't know. I don't know which is, that just seems like a disconnect. But remember that dominant seventh chords, we talked about dominant function, that a chord has a dominant function. So dominant doesn't just mean the 5 chord, the chord built on the 5th degree, but it's got a function. Does anyone remember what dominant function means? We say a chord has dominant function. And you can throw it in the chat or you can say it out loud. Someone tell me what dominant function means.
Is is it
Silence.
when like certain chords want to go to another kind of chord?
Yeah, well, specifically, and I've got this also in the chat, but you're exactly right. But specifically, the dominant chord wants to go to the tonic chord. So we say something has dominant function. What we mean is it wants to go to the tonic. So 5 wants to go to 1. So, and that's why we say other chords that want to go to 1 also have dominant function or are dominant chords, even though they're not the dominant chord. The dominant chord is the 5 chord, Roman numeral 5, the chord on the 5th degree of the scale. But there is another chord that has dominant function, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But we're not going to get there yet because we're going to review a little bit. So, guys, not only do we have the 5 chord being the dominant chord, when I say a 5 chord, it's the chord on the 5th degree of the scale, represented by a Roman numeral 5, right, a V. So that's what we mean by the 5 chord. So the 5 chord, we added something to it. We made a 5-7 chord. We took a 5 chord and we put another third on top of it, made a 5 chord with a 7th. Does anyone remember what kind of chord it was and what kind of 7th it was? Again, you throw it in the chat or you could say it out loud. Yeah. So I got it in the chat here. It's what we call a major minor chord. That means that the chord is a major chord. Dominant chord in major, 5 chord is a major chord, but you put the 7th on it. The 7th is a minor 7th. Leslie, were you going to say something? I saw your light up.
No.
Okay, so anyway, it's a dominant. It's a major chord with a minor seventh. There's only one in a major scale. All the other major chords, if you had sevenths, are major sevenths. So the dominant chord is completely recognizable. It's a major chord with a minor seventh, and that happens without any accidentals in a major key. In a minor key, we have to add one accidental. What do we do to change a dominant chord to make it a major chord with a minor seventh? Does anyone remember what we do to it? Again, feel free to throw it in the chat if you don't want to say it out loud. Yes. So I got to get out of the chat correctly. So remember, in a minor key, the 5 chord is normally minor. So we have to make it a major key note, which means the third note, the third degree of the chord. We sharp it, we raise it a half a step. That happens to be the 7th degree of the scale. So that's that harmonic minor where we sharp the 7th degree of the scale, and that makes our dominant chord major. So we have a major chord with a minor 7th. That's the dominant 7th chord. So I'm just reviewing this stuff, guys. Take notes if you don't remember it, but if you don't remember it, that's okay. It's been a couple weeks, and we just did it. Okay, so let's remember why this chord wants to go to 1. I'm going to share the screen, as is my custom. So here is, if I'm doing a dominant chord, I would make it, I'm going to make this dominant 7th chord, I'm just going to put it in treble clef. Let's see, that's better. Come on, you. There we go. There's my dominant 7th chord in C major, right? And the reason that we can, I'm going to put the bass note down here in the bass clef because it's going to be more obvious. Circle progression. The root wants to go up by a 4th or down by a 5th. That's the most powerful motion that a root can do. So here's my root note because I'm in root position, and that wants to go up to the C. That's what it wants to do. It can go to other places, but roots love this motion. This is circle progression motion. And then 7ths always want to resolve downward by step. That's where they want to go. Leading tones want to go up. And that G just can do anything it wants to do. And what do you get? You get a 5 chord going to a 1 chord. So the motion automatically leads you. So that's how it gets its function. So our dominant chord functions because the 7th goes down, the root wants to act the way it does, the third, the leading tone wants to go up. Everything's hunky dory. So the 5 chord is so natural. And again, if we want to hear it, we've heard that a million times in our life. It just makes sense. Okay, so the other thing we could look at is that 7th to the 3rd, those 2 powerful notes form a tritone. And tritones want to resolve in contrary to motion. So if the top note goes down, the bottom note wants to go up. And that's how tritones kind of want to resolve. There's no reason that I know for that they go in contrary motion. They just do. It just sounds better to our ears. So that's the review. That's our dominant 7th chord. Are there any questions on the dominant 7th chord before I get to new material? Ask lots of questions, people. Otherwise, the class could be really short. You don't want to get up at 8 in the morning and then not have a full class. That would be a waste of an alarm clock. Okay, I see no questions. Unless something came in on chat. If you sent something on chat, quickly shout to me. I'll find it. Okay, so the chord we're going to do today is the other dominant chord. Does anyone remember what the other dominant chord is? If you look at your chart, right, you have a tonic chord at each end of the chart, and the 3 chord is the closest to the tonic, and then you have 6 chord, and then you get some subdominant or predominant chords, and then you get the dominant chords. What other chord is a dominant chord? And let me get my chat where I can see it. The predominant chords are the 4 and the 2. Those are the predominant or subdominant chords. So which chords are the dominant chords? The 4 and the 2 are predominants, subdominants. Which one are the dominants? The 5 chord, and what's the other one? Yeah, the 7 chord. There you go. Exactly. That's the right answer. So 7 chord. And let's look at why the 7 chord. So, it was hard to show this when we only had a 5 chord, but we have the 5-7 chord. That's the most common kind of dominant chord. Watch some magic. I'm going to show you magic. If I take out, let's just look at the treble clef for right now. If I take out the root of the chord, my 5-7 chord becomes a 7 chord. Look at that. The key of C major, B, D, F. It's a diminished chord built on 7. It's exactly the same notes as the 5 chord, except I just cut out the root. So you're going to see that everything wants to resolve the same way. Let me just look at it. Let's leave out that G for a moment. Sometimes we don't get that note in there. But the leading tone wants to go up. The top note wants to go down because that forms that tritone. So it automatically takes us to a C chord. In this case, the C chord is missing its 5th. We can get that elsewhere. But sometimes you have to leave the 5th out. But basically, a 7 chord just is a 5 chord with a note missing. And it acts just like a 5 chord because all the same notes that have to resolve want to resolve. So that's the 7 chord. It acts just like 5-7. But that's not the new chord we're learning. We've learned that chord before. The chord we're learning is that in every chord, we can add a 7th. So let's stay in major. Today, we're going to be living in major. And let's add the 7th. 7th wants to resolve downward by step. So look at that. Let's leave out the bass. We don't want the bass right now. Look at this. This is a 7-7 chord. And it's resolving to the 1 chord because the 7 resolves down, leading tone resolves up. The tritone goes in contrary motion, so the F goes down to the E. It was the old 7th of the 5-7 chord. And then the D goes to whatever's closest. The 7-7 chord is just as powerful a chord as the 5 chord, as the 5-7 chord. Look at that there. It's the 7-7 chord. Ooh, change the share so I can write some things on the chalkboard. There we go. So let's get that whiteboard up here. So basically, what we just created was the 7. That's the small numbers, so I put little dots up here. The 7-7, but it's the 7 chord is diminished, so little circle means diminished. But it turns out that 7th is a minor 7th. If you're in a major key. So because the 7th is minor, we can't write it as a diminished 7th. So what we do is we put a slash through the so that was badly written. But so I'll show you here. It's a circle, and then we just put a line through it like that. And that line says half diminished. And half diminished means it's a diminished chord, I'm sorry, but the 7th is a minor 7th. So let me type that so we can say that again. You can see that half diminished 7th chord. 7th chord means that it's a diminished chord, but a minor 7th. And that's what we have in major. And it's very simple. 7 goes down. Leading tone wants to go up. 7 goes to 1. Now, you remember when we were talking about circle progressions, and I don't know if this guy's going to let me draw again. It keeps doing this to me where I don't know how to get back to drawing. Get off of text. Leave text. I'm going to close it and reopen it. That usually works for me. So in circle progression, we had this thing where if we had a 5 going to 1 or any other chord where the root goes up. By the way, on your exams or the finals, I said, what's the definition of a circle progression? And everyone said, it goes up by a 4th. And I didn't know what it was. It's because it could be the bass note, the root, the soprano. It's the root of the chord, regardless of inversion, the root of the chord, not the bass right there. So you have to actually say root. When we have a circle progression, we draw a big, thick line like that. They just draw a slur, and that says, oh, circle progression, root goes up by a 4th. Well, the 7 chord is just the 5 chord with the bottom note chopped off. So if I have a 7 chord going to a 1, they say, well, it acts like a circle progression. There's my 7 going to a 1. They say it acts like a circle progression, so we still draw a slur, but we draw the dotted slur. And that tells you, well, it's sort of like a 5 chord. We just left the bottom out of it. And so you're going to see when we do our what they call macro analyses, if a 7 goes to 1, we put a dotted line, even though it's not really a circle progression. It replaces the 5, which is a circle progression. Before I go on, are there any questions on all that sort of nonsense? This is not nonsense. This is nonsense, but you have to learn it because that's how theorists think nowadays. Yes, I see a question. Go ahead.
Since you're recording the lecture, can you send it to us?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll post it on for each of these lectures, guys, because I'm going to record them all. I'll post them on YouTube, and then I'll send you a link to the YouTube. So I'll probably put it on a private YouTube, and then send you all a link. So it'll take about 24 hours to get the link up because it takes forever to load something to YouTube at this length. Like it takes like a half an hour. But I'll start uploading right after class, and as soon as I have a good link, I'll send it to you.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. Because I
And-
might have questions when I watch it again later.
Yeah, completely understandable. And so I think it's a good idea that we record it. You'll fast forward through the dumb stuff. And I did hit the record button, right? I'm sure I did because I said I did. Yes, it's recording. Yay. Okay, good. Are there any other questions, guys? And thank you for reminding me. If I forget to send you a link, somebody text me. I'll get it out to you. Any questions, guys? Okay. So now we know that the 7 goes to 1 and the 7/7 goes to 1, and the major, it's a half diminished, and that's how we write it. Good. So let's go back to finale for a second. I'm going to stop my share. Okay. So here's the only real trick. For reasons that are a mystery to me and to every theorist I've ever spoken to, in the era that most of this is written, which is modern pop music, it's also the classical era, the Baroque era, the early Romantic era. So through 1900 in classical music, and most rock and most jazz and most pop, for some reason, the 7 chord rarely appears in root position. I do not know why. I do not know why. There's nothing wrong with it. It can appear in root position. It's just rare. So here's a chord if it's in root position. But let me do it in 4 parts for a second in other positions. What happens if I'm in first inversion? Well, the bass note then has to be a D. The second note can be any other note. It doesn't really matter. So I'll put in 2 notes. And then the top takes over whatever's left, which I think is going to be that. What the heck? Now, guys, this is terrible voicing. I'll take that down an octave. Why not? Because you see how open my voicing is. Remember, we want to be in close spacing whenever we can. That's better. So those are our notes, the B, D, F, A, B, D, F, A. Remember, guys, I'm not going to ask you this because I don't want to embarrass anyone by trapping you. What note do we double in a 7th chord? The answer is none. There are 4 notes in a 7th chord. There are 4 notes in 4-part harmony. We don't double any of them. We make sure they're all there. So this is first inversion, but every note still has the same kind of function. That B still wants to go up to the C. It still wants to. Sometimes if it's hidden, we can drop it, but it's harder. There we go. So the B is going to want to go up to the C. Let me put it in here. The 7th has to go down. So 7th is going to go to the G. The F can go to either note. It's probably going to go to the E because it's the missing note. And then the D can go to the C or the E, whichever one you want. Probably it's going to go in contrary motion, so you don't get 8 parallels. And so that would be how that chord might resolve. It's in first inversion, but all you still want to do is figure out what's the 7th of the chord. So the chord is B, D, F, A. There's root position. 7th wants to go down. The leading tone is the root. It's going to want to go up and then avoid parallels. So you can actually go into any inversion and make this thing work. I'll do a second inversion. So the second inversion starts on an F. That's okay. That's easy enough. And let's make it an F and a B this time. Put the tritone right on the bottom. Oops, down an octave. And what notes am I missing? The G and what am I missing? G and A? Is that what I'm missing? Why not? G and A. Okay. Now remember, the A is the seventh. It's going to go down. So the G and the A are going to become unisons. The leading tone's going to want to go up. It's going to want to go to the C. And because I don't have an E and you have to have an E, I'm going to have to drop that F down to the E. And there we go again. Leading tone goes up, seventh goes down. There's another resolution. It's all you got to do is follow the rules. So here's what I would do if I was asked to write a 7/7 to 1 in any key. I would first just go write the key signature of the key, write the seventh and root position somewhere so I can see what the notes are. Then whatever inversion is, that's my bass note. And then I put whatever notes are left in there. And then I look, say, what's the seventh? I resolve that down. I look and say, what's the leading tone? Resolve it up and fill in the missing notes. And that's all it takes to resolve these chords. And if you can do that, you've mastered half the chapter. The second half is we have to do it in minor. By the way, if you do it in major, minor is no problem. Okay? So, are you guys feel ready to try to practice a little of this? Give me a thumbs up if you feel ready. I see 1 thumbs up. I see 2 thumbs up. I see fear. I got 3 thumbs up. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a key. I'm going to give you an inversion. Then I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to do it at the same time you do. Then I'm going to show you my solution. Compare it to yours. If you have questions, ask them. If you are afraid of asking in public, send it by a private note in chat and I won't reveal your name. And we'll do it in a couple different inversions until we're just so comfortable with this that it's second nature. So we're going to practice a little. So let's do D major. Who wants to tell me what the key signature is of D major? Key signature of D major. You chat, type it in the chat if you prefer. What's the key signature of D major? No answer. No one's going to tell me. All right. So I will show you here. I think that you guys know, but I'm going to review the material. So let's just put a bunch of sharps up here. Yeah, I got a correct answer there. So if I put a bunch of sharps, you look at the order of them, and the order is down a fourth, up a fifth. It's always the same pattern because it's what we call circle of fifths. So you start with an F sharp, that's your first sharp, go down a fourth, C sharp, up a fifth, so that's space to space. G sharp, then down a fourth, that's space to line. D sharp, then up a fifth, that takes you to an A sharp, which by the way is also down a fourth. And you can keep adding forever. Now, how do we know what key we're in? You take the last sharp and you go up half a step. The last sharp is your leading tone. So that 5 sharps would be key of B. 4 sharps would be key of E. 3 sharps would be key of A. 2 sharps is key of D. Now you want to always memorize those, but you can always figure it out. Just look at the sharps. As long as you know it's F, C, this pattern of sharps, then you know 2 sharps, F and C is the key of D. So let me make this the key of D so we can see it. So that's the first thing. Now, if D is tonic, everyone type into the chat what the leading tone would be, the 7th degree, because that's what we're going to build our chord out of. So what's the leading tone? What note? Type it into the chat, everybody. Yes, it is a C, but it's a C sharp. Make sure you always put the sharp in because even though they're on the same line and even though the key signature tells you it's sharp, C is this note, C sharp is this note. They're different notes and they're different keys. And if you mistake them, you can get in trouble. So it's a C sharp. So I will just make this one sort of, I'll give you a hint on it. So the notes that are got to be in the 7th chord, it's got to be a C sharp. I'll just build them for you here. Whoops. C sharp, then the 3rd above it, because you just build by thirds, is the E. And then the 3rd above that's the G, and the 3rd above that's the B. And that's how you find your 7 chord, your 7/7 chord. It's automatically half diminished in major. You don't have to think about it. You know the 1 chord's D. So we're going to practice with just this chord in a couple different inversions. So I'm going to take off my share. Let's go to 4-part harmony. So 2 notes in the bottom, 2 notes at the top. We're going to do it root position. C sharp is going to be your bass note. Let's write a 5 chord resolving to a 7/7 chord resolving to a 1 chord in root position in the key of D. And then give me a thumbs up when it's done. I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to do it. So go for it.
I had one question.
Yes, please. Ask away.
I'm just making sure that the slash through the circle means half diminished, and it's half diminished because the 7th is minor, right?
That's correct. If you don't have a slash, it's full diminished, and that means the 7th is also diminished.
Got it.
Now we'll talk about that on Wednesday. But that's
Okay.
exactly right. Thank you, Davio. All right. Remember to give me thumbs up when you've got yours done. Sophie, how's it going? We getting close?
Yeah.
Okay. If we're getting close, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so remember, now, by the way, guys, I'm pretty fast at this, partly because I've been doing it for a long time, partly because I'm pretty quick at the software, and part of it is because I have a keyboard. So even though I know that that's a C, if I didn't know it, I hit the chord, a note, and it gives it to me. So it's very simple. But those are my 4 notes, and I'm in root position, so I know the bass note has to be C sharp, has to be. The other notes can be anything I want them to be. I want them in closed spacing. In this case, I put the 7th in there, and then I just filled in the 2 missing notes, except I put a G sharp. That was a typo. Sorry. So those are my notes right there. I just, again, it's C, E, G, B. How do I know? C sharp, E, G, B. C sharp, E, G, B. So once I put the notes in, the second thing I don't even think about. I know the 7th, the B has to go down. Boom, has to. I know that the leading tone, the C sharp, wants to go up. I put that in. Now, these notes actually can go any place they want. So the easiest thing is for them to both go up by thirds because I need an F sharp. So somebody's got to get to the F sharp. You know, the 7th goes down, the leading tone goes up, and then I just fill in. So I ended up with this configuration. If you put the 7th in a different place, it'll resolve downwards separately, but the B will go to the A somewhere. The C sharp will probably go up to the D somewhere, and ultimately you'll have a D, F sharp, and A in this chord. And you could double anything. If I really wanted to double the bass, which would be normal, then I could have had these guys go down instead. But sometimes melodies require you to go different directions, so instead I end up doubling the 5th. But I could have had an F sharp and a D here if I wanted to. That would have been correct also. So that's how we get there. Okay, guys, I'm looking at my chat. So you can send me questions, or you could just shout them out if you want. Oh,
So
wait a
the
second.
leading tone,
I'm sorry, what's
uh,
that?
so the leading tone always wants to go up and the 7th always wants to go down.
That's right. That's right. And the
Okay.
7th is stronger than the leading tone. The 7th is going to go down by a step. The leading
Okay.
tone, sometimes if it's in the middle of a voice, can drop down instead of up, just like it does with the 5 chord, but it wants to pretty badly. The 7th really has to. I mean, so one is wants and one is needs. The 7 needs to go down. The leading tone really, really, really wants to go up. Great question again. Any more questions, guys? I love questions.
I'm kind of overall confused.
Okay. So talk to me about the confusion. Like, let me ask you some questions. So you understand that the 7 chord wants to go to the 1 chord.
Yes.
And you understand that the 7 chord with a 7th on it is just we added another third on the top like we do with every chord to make a 7th. So it's a 7 over the bass.
Right.
And that doesn't change how it wants to go. It still wants to go to the 1, right?
Right.
Okay. So, and you see in the key, I'm just asking questions so I know where the problem is, not because, so then you see that in the key of D, if the scale is D, that C sharp is the 7th degree of the scale and D is the tonic, the 1 degree of the scale?
Right.
Okay. Is that clear? I don't want to.
Yes.
All right. So we know that if we build a, so that right there is our 7/7 chord, and it's got to go to a D chord or 1 chord. I could put the D chord here if we wanted to make it clearer. So because that's a 5 going to 1. And we're in root position. So we know that when we do our final version, the root position that the C, that's root position has got to be in the bass. So we know that.
Mhm.
So
Right.
so since we know these notes are going to go to these notes and that the bass has to be here, the other 3 notes could be in any voice. I chose them in this arrangement because it was different than I did last time. But the B could be in the soprano, the E could be in the tenor. But these 3 notes have to be included above the C sharp bass somewhere. And then where do they go? Well, the C sharp is the 7th degree of the scale, so it's the leading tone of the scale. 7th degree is the leading tone, and that wants to go up. So when it resolves, it's going to resolve to the tonic. The 7th is not the 7th of the scale, it's the 7th of the chord, and that's the B. You can see right there, that's the 3, 5, 7. The top note's the 7. The B is the 7th, has to go down. Boom. So you already see there's your outline of your D chord. The other 2 voices want to move stepwise. They don't have to do anything, but they want to go to the closest possible. So the G can either go up to the A or down to the F. The E can go up to the F or down to the D. They're both correct. as long as one of them ends up on the F sharp, because the F sharp's the third of the chord, and we have to have a third of the chord. So these notes just have to move because that's how they want to move. And when you do that, this is what it sounds like. Either up, oops, that's, yeah, or sorry, gotta get the right note, sorry. Or going down is actually better. If these two went down, is a little bit smoother sounding, but they're both correct. I'll just do that right now. Sorry. There we go. So did my explanation make it any clearer or not? Which part of that confused you, Sophie?
I think I got it now.
Yeah. And so this is why we practice, because, the thing is that you can hear my words and you can even think you understand my words, but till you have to put notes down, it's,
Yeah.
and then you put them down, you're confused, and you ask, and I answer, then you're confused, so I answer a different way, then all of a sudden you're not confused because we practiced enough. So that's why we practice. And by the way, never be upset, guys. If this, in education terms, we say that there's something called synthesizing information. We're really good at telling you facts. But the only way those facts are meaningful is if you can synthesize them into practice. And that's hard to do. And that's why we practice. That's the act of synthesizing. It's the hardest thing to do in learning. It's the hardest thing to do in teaching. So if you have a little trouble synthesizing at first, join the rest of us. That's just the way it is. So we're going to practice to try and get the synthesis happen, but never be upset or embarrassed if it takes a little time to make these connections, because you're really changing synapses in the brain to do it. And but we will get there. So let's practice another one, because that's how we do this. But this time we're going to practice it in first inversion. And I just want to do the inversions because they're more common. We just see them all the time. So first inversion just means that the E has to be your bass note now, not the C sharp, first inversion. But all those notes still have to be there. They all still behave the same way. So once again, I'm going to turn off the share. I'm going to do it. Then I'm going to come back. Everyone give me a thumbs up when you've done a first inversion one. And we'll take a look at my answer and see if it's still confusing. Here we go, everyone. Good luck to you.
I have a question.
Yes, please, Daviel.
So now that we're in first inversion, the seventh of the chord doesn't want to go down anymore, right?
No, it's still
It's
the seventh still wants to go down. So it's the seventh over the root, not over the bass again. So it's the same notes. The seventh over the root, it still needs to go down. And the leading tone still wants to go up. So none of the notes change their function. The inversion doesn't actually change anything except the bass note.
okay, I see.
Okay?
Thank you.
Sure.
You're still muted.
All right, I say that even though not everyone is quite done, I'm going to show you my answer because we're almost out of time and I want to be able to answer questions if you have it. So this one right here is the one in first inversion. All I did is I took the second note of the chord, that's first inversion, put it in the bass. Otherwise, this is the same note. So I still need a C, I put it in the tenor. I need a G, I need a B. I just put them, they could be in any voice. Again, it doesn't matter. The only thing that's required is this note and that all the notes be present. Now the seventh, the B, is now in the soprano, wants to go downward by step. The leading tone, the C sharp, is now in the tenor. It wants to go up. That gives us the D and the A. Well, the alto can go either way, A or G. So it goes down to the F sharp, fills in the chord. Now the bass note can go up to the F sharp. It can go down to the D. If it goes to D, we're in root position. F sharp, we're in first inversion. Either way, we'd be doubling the bass note. In this case, we're doubling the root. And it sounds really kind of nice because, and I will, sounds really kind of nice. Here we go. Yeah, works perfectly. Works perfectly. So right there we have an example that it's nothing has changed. The seventh still goes down, the leading tone still goes up, the leading tone's just in a different voice now. And that's all there is to it. The rules don't change. Once we get used to it, it's actually easier than you think. The tendency will be to overthink. Who's got a question in the remaining 30 seconds?
Should we always try to have the tonic chord in root position?
No, there's no need for that. If I had put this in first inversion, it works just as well. You remember when we're in first inversion, we could double the soprano or the bass are both likely doublings. In this case, I've doubled the bass. I just double a different note. So that works also. There's no reason that you have to go to root position. It's just a stronger cadence if you do. Because the first inversion works fine. So if you're at an end of a phrase, end of a piece, you probably want that in root position. But so it's a slightly weaker cadence, but it sounds perfectly good. Nothing wrong with it. And we'll do the other inversions on Wednesday. So guys, I will post this. It'll take it a long time to load in. And then when I have a break, I'll send you links. While you're doing homework or looking at the video or just thinking, write down questions, remember them, because we always start our class with questions before we do a quiz. And I'm very happy to spend as much time as you need going over this stuff. So on Wednesday, we'll do that. Tomorrow, it's ear training, because why not? And oh my gosh, are we going to have fun as we drill rhythm? We will. We're going to find the stuff that you have some trouble with and make it so you don't have trouble anymore. That's the goal. All right. So guys, welcome back. It's great to have you all back together and hearing your voice. It's marvelous. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful night. Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Professor?
Yes.
So I'm not registered for lab right now.
Yeah.
On WebAdvisor, the lab is scheduled for 10 a.m. and I have another class at that time.
Okay.
And so on WebAdvisor it's a conflict, but it ends up not being.
Okay, I will write to the registrar and records both today. Because
Okay.
it's funny at lab. And if I'll carbon copy you on it. So if you haven't seen it by end of day, send me a mean text, because it just meant that somehow I didn't get to it. I should, and I'll also add you to the Canvas class, so you won't have any trouble doing anything until they get you registered for it. Okay, but I'll try and get that done
Awesome.
today. It shouldn't take me long.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's great to have you back.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.